Welcome to Right on Track, a songwriting podcast. Thanks to Tone for tuning in. I'm Demi Michelle Schwartz, and I'm thrilled you're joining me on my songwriting journey. So kick back and relax, don't fall flat, and remember, stay right on track. Hello everyone, welcome back to Right on Track. I am very excited because joining me today is fellow podcaster Jakub Winiarski from the Sunday Night Army. Hey Jacob.
Hi, Demi. How are you?
I'm great, how are you?
Oh, I am super excited to be here on your show today.
I am so honored to have you. This was a long time coming, so I'm very happy we finally were able to work it out. Today, we are going to be chatting all about songwriting habits, and I'm thrilled and so excited. But before we get into our conversation, can you share with the listeners a little about yourself and your show?
Oh, for sure. I am coming to you live from just outside of Detroit, Michigan. I'm in Canada, actually, in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. I am a independent artist and podcaster. My show, The Sunday Night Army, is available worldwide on all podcasts and music streaming platforms. And it's where I feature fantastic music artists, such as yourself, and talk about entertainment news and all the other cool stuff. But mainly, the main reason for the show is to showcase artists that you don't get on the radio, but you should be listening to. So I've been doing that. The show's actually at about 207 episodes released right now, almost 3 years. And it's my third podcast that I'm casually working on.
Fabulous. Love your show. Everybody definitely go listen. I love catching the episodes whenever I can. You're great at what you do. And also, congratulations, over 200. Wow.
Yeah, it's a struggle, but it's a fun struggle. I enjoy this type of struggle.
Yeah, for sure. I'm getting close to 80, which is crazy because it's only been about a year and a couple months. So wild, but fun. Well, I'm so excited to have you to chat all about songwriting habits. To kick things off, can you read a quote by Octavia Butler?
Yes, let's get to that. The quote is: first, forget inspiration. Habit is more dependable. Habit will sustain you whether you're inspired or not.
I love this. So, what does this quote bring up for you when you're reading it?
It in pieces, it gives you dependability of your own work, because even when you have to create something, you go to a place where it's a constant beginning. So for me, and I applied it to what I do, is anytime I think music, it always starts from the same spot creatively, and if you and it built into a habit, because I always 99.9% of the time start from the same spot in anything I do, and I love that quote.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think this quote is great because there's a lot of songwriters, me included when I started, when songwriters will just wait until major inspiration strikes before they can write a song. And especially for writers like me who want to write for other artists and do a lot of co-writing, if I have a co-write at 4 o'clock on Friday, I need to be able to write at 4 o'clock on Friday if I'm inspired or not. So you need to have ways of finding inspiration on your own and finding that creativity instead of just waiting for it to strike.
100%, and I give you a bunch of credit, because having to do it on the spot when it's necessary is extremely hard. And for someone like me who does uh, music writing for fun, and I don't have to wait till an inspiration starts. It's mostly when I'm bored, and I just do it. And I give you all the credit in the world, because you have to have that habit built in to be able to do that on the spot when necessary.
For sure. So you mentioned that for you, it tends to start from the same spot. So can you chat a little more about that side of your process and how you're able to write from that same spot each time?
Oh, for sure. And creatively for me, the inspiration is one thing, but when I write music, I write it for myself about things that make me want to write about, and it always starts from the chorus. And not because the repetitive is because when I write, I instinctively go to the hook, the chorus, and the lyrics and the melody at the same time. And like every single song I've ever written, even if I had an instrumental, always starts from the hook, the chorus, because to me that's what engages the listener. And if it engages me to start from there, it'll engage the listener at that point, and that's what makes it memorable.
That's fantastic. I think that's an amazing habit to have, and that's something I'm actually trying to get into a bit more. Because when I'm writing, I love verse content, I love the details and the imagery, but there's sometimes where I will write verses and be sitting there and thinking, what am I actually trying to say? And I think when you can start from a title or a concept and that big message of the chorus, then everything that you write is going to be going back to that. And so I definitely think starting from a chorus each time is amazing. One of the things I love to do, and this is one of my habits, is free writing. Every single time I write a song, whether it's on my own or with collaborators, I always do free writing. And this is a way for me to ground myself into a concept that maybe inspired me or maybe a collaborator brought up that they want to explore. Because during that free writing, that can bring up a lot of title ideas, lyric ideas, and really help to ground me. If I'm not feeling inspired, that can open up the door to ways to take the song, but I'm not actually feeling the creativity at the beginning.
Hmm. What do you think of this? Because I want your opinion on this part and kind of going off of that. When since I do start from that point, and obviously I have no idea what the verses are going to be. It kind of, what do you think of this concept where when I write the hook, when I write the chorus of the track, now I have to explain my idea in the verses why.
That's perfect. No, that's 100% correct too, because I feel like I think of the verses as like, this is the story, and then the chorus is this is the message. And so I think the cool thing with starting from a chorus and that title and idea that allows you to take the story and verse content in many different directions in the way that you feel fit. Because think about it, there's so many songs that basically say the exact same thing in the chorus, but those songs are so different because what's being said in the verses is a different story and painting different pictures. And so that's definitely a great way to make songs individual and to expand on a message. Once you have a chorus idea, you're explaining why you are sharing that message with the listeners in those courses, in the verses, I mean.
Mhm. Exactly. That's my last single. That's exactly how it came together. My producer sent me the instrumental, and it wasn't even intended for me because he just sends me beats just to and to listen to and how get an opinion on them. I'm like, with the first 5 seconds, I was like, I'm gonna press the record button and send it back to you. What do you think? And I don't sing. I have a terrible voice. I'm awful. And and he immediately wrote back. We had a 10-second conversation of here's what I think. Here's what I got for what you just sent me. Oh man, that sounds amazing. Hey, how about you record it?
Oh,
That
wow.
was like 5 minutes right there.
That's incredible. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So let's chat a little more about good songwriting habits of ours. So you like to start with choruses, I do free writing, but what are some other things that come to mind that you think are good songwriting habits?
Consistency, and I always stick to the concept of a song. And to put it in perspective, I mainly write hip hop, rap, and what gets me sometimes is when you're going through a song and it switches topics 2 or 3 times within the entire song, and that's too much for me. I like to stay consistent to the idea of the concept, and the habit of getting through an idea is number one for me. You have an idea, process that idea in your writing and stick to that one.
That's fantastic. I think consistency is so important, not only from the song itself, but also in practicing your craft. I try to write every day, whether that be just a free write or tweaking lyrics in a song. I don't have to write a whole song every day, but I think it's important to be consistent in the songwriting itself, but also with practicing your craft.
Hmm. No, 100% because it's a practice. Well, there's a saying, practice makes perfect, right? And when you focus your consistency to, I'm going to do this over and over and over, you build that habit.
For sure. And I think too, like sometimes for the people listening who may just be starting songwriting or you're having trouble finding time to write or the desire to write, I think once you force yourself to do this every day, maybe first thing in the morning, you tell yourself, before I do anything, I'm going to free write for 5 minutes. Or it can be like before I go to sleep, I'm going to write something that could be a course. Like if you actually block that into your days, it'll start becoming more natural. And if you do it daily or every other day to start, then it won't feel like, oh, I have to do this thing. It's kind of like in your schedule and it feels natural.
Exactly, and this is one of the main questions I ask, and this is my habit. I ask pretty much the same question in many ways on every single artist that I have on my show because I like digging deep into the artist's brain, such as yourself, because I want to know the main process that they derive their writing from, because you can deep dive into some people's ideas, and everybody's different, but most of it's very similar. And what we're getting at today with habits is it's very interesting to me to find out so far about 130 artists on my show how similar or different everybody's writing habits are.
Yeah, and the thing is, you have to find what works for you. And I think the only way to do that is to try different things. And that brings me to another really important songwriting habit is to like not put yourself in a box. Be able to explore different genres, try different instruments, write different times of day. If you write from the lyrics all the time first, maybe try writing a melody or write to a track. And I think by doing that, you start to discover what works for you. And it also gives you more of a variety to write because if I'm in a co write with an artist who definitely likes to start with melody, where I tend to start with the lyrics, if I've never done that, I'm gonna be like, oh gosh, like I don't know how to do this. But if I've got an experience myself doing that, then it just makes the process much easier. So I think flexibility with their process is important.
Mhm. And that was my experience writing the first song I ever did was a co-write, and I had no idea what I was doing at all. And my friend at the time and that we did the song together, my collaborator, he was a fully experienced artist who went on tour in Europe, and he was in a boy band. He knew what the heck he was doing, and this guy over here, no clue. It was my first real song that we were working on. So it's an experience, but you learn also about like we're talking about people's habits and how they're creatively different, and their approach. And me not knowing anything, we're just like, huh, okay, I'm learning. Where would you like me?
Yeah, for sure. Learning different people's processes is so interesting to me. And I love how you make it a point on your show to ask all the time, what's your process? Because even for songwriters who have been doing this for a while, no matter how long you've been writing, there's always more to learn. And the coolest thing is when I listen to a podcast episode or am and just like a co-write with somebody and they bring something up like, oh, I do this. And it's like, oh, I've never thought of that. I've never done that before.
Hmm.
And then you try it and it ends up working. And so I think being open to others' processes is really important so you grow as a songwriter as well. Another good habit that I think is really important, and this is something I didn't do when I started because of confidence issues, but I think it's so important to always get some kind of feedback on your songs, whether that be as you're writing it or before you decide to record it. It's really important to show your songs to listeners and other songwriters to get their impressions and their feedback before you run to record it to make sure it's exactly how you want it. And when I started, I really struggled with my confidence and I was afraid to show people my music. So nobody really knew I was writing or recording until I was like, hey guys, I'm releasing a song. And my friends are like, you're doing what? But now I think it's really important to get feedback, and that's definitely made me a better songwriter.
I don't think I could agree any more than that. What I do with mine is I have my a friend that's a producer that produces all my music, but also have a very small circle of friends that literally get the track as soon as I record it, and then I get the feedback from it of, you like it, you don't like it, what does it sound like, and that is precious information to me, because if I want to put out something that at the time I think is the best, I can do it. But if I do it without having a different set of ears, and not a set of ears that's producing it, but another set of ears that has nothing to do with your music, and that's why I have a small little circle that is unbiased and will be honest. And you just need that because they can pick out things that you're not even focusing on when you're writing, you're being creative with.
For sure, I completely agree, and I definitely have that small circle as well. And it's interesting because some of those people are songwriters, and like my best friend, she's not a songwriter, but she is obsessed with music and she listens to a ton of music, especially pop and country, which is what I write. And so it's really interesting when you send your songs to songwriters and non musicians because the songwriters are going to be focusing on craft stuff mostly, but my friend Jess, who isn't a musician or songwriter, she's going to be listening just like any other listener would be. And there's some times where she'll point things out that my songwriter friends don't, and I'm like, "Oh, I never thought of that," because I'm thinking too technically about it instead of just from a listener standpoint.
Hmm. Exactly my point. It's healthy for someone creative doing anything to get feedback on it. It's very
Mhm.
healthy for your craft.
For sure. Yeah, like right now I am currently trying to find an agent for my book that I wrote in school. And like even during that process, I had critique groups, I had mentors, and I'm still like sending my work out to friends like when I'm changing things, what do you think about this? Like no matter what creative thing you're doing, you need to get feedback because in your head it can be the best thing in the world, but when you actually show it to somebody else who's not emotionally and personally tied to that, they can give you a more objective opinion.
That's 100% true. I gave one of my friends one of my short stories to kind of read and do a quick edit on. I got it back and I was like, huh, that's a lot of pen on that on all my notes, guys. Come on. And no, like, but you're not ready until you understand why it's there and
For
how
sure.
beneficial it is. I'm like, oh, okay, so I guess I have to do some rewrites here. And but it's okay because then it gets you an opportunity to go over your story and improve and understand. The good thing is about, for example, this friend here, he also likes to write. So when he critiques something or adds to it, he also explains why. And then I have to go over it in my head, like, does it make sense to me? Does it not make sense to me? Makes it better or not? And again, mentally, very positive for creative output.
For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, before we switch into some major bad habits, do you have any final good habits to share?
Consistency in production. It doesn't have to be always great work. Just make sure you keep doing it. Just don't stop. Even if you don't think, we create a habit of, like you mentioned already, to continuously create.
I love that. Literally anything. And I like how you brought out the production too, because that can be like your production of the work, like consistently creating, but also production itself of the song. Like, especially for artists who are trying to still find their sound, once you get into the studio, there's a whole element of making that song sound it's like it's one cohesive piece of work and working with a group of people who can help see your vision. um, I definitely think this plays into the recording side as well.
Hmm. And for someone that like I've mixed my own music, and it's awful because it's so hard, so much work, and you gain so much respect for people that know what they're doing when they mix and master music. So when I tried doing it myself, and my first EP I mixed and mastered on my own, and it's god awful. Cool music, I like it. Nobody else has to, but it's that I mixed and mastered his project myself. So, but you know what? That it's a learning experience, and that is a very positive thing.
For sure. Yeah, and just to add one more thing before we switch gears, I think this is kind of more of a mindset thing, but can tie into habits as well. I think it's important to know your strengths and your weaknesses and to not get offended or feel like you're inferior if there's something in the whole music experience that you're not the best at. And I think focusing on your true calling, whether that be with the writing or the production or playing in a session, like as a session player, like whatever it is for you, like I think it's important to get into the habit of accepting, hey, these are my strengths and these are the things I might need to work on, and you don't need to be the best at everything. All right, Jacob, bad habits.
Uh, Bad habits, the main ones are very internal because you're your own worst enemy and you create your own bad habits. And in writing, okay, one or two things are main bad habits that I've done and I've seen. One, it has to do with actual writing, is utilizing the same structure in your music, which in my style you don't want to do because it sounds the same. And two, don't be your own worst critic. Because if you're making something, you're creating, and then you hate it and you put it away in your own mind, doesn't mean other people will hate it. So your structure, being consistently using the same template in your writing is a bad habit, and being your own worst critic is becomes a habit over time.
I love those. I especially love the structure one because, especially with like commercial music, pop and country that I write, it's very like, oh, you need your verse and a chorus and a bridge and blah blah. But still, if you're sticking to a commercial structure, that doesn't mean every single one of your songs has 4 line verses, a 2 line pre, an 8 line chorus, and a 4 line bridge. Like you need to switch that up. Maybe one song doesn't have a second pre, maybe there's no pre at all. Maybe one song has an intro, maybe another song has an outro, maybe there's an instrumental section. I think it's important to analyze popular songs and see how artists and songwriters are conforming to commercial music while also breaking out of the structure to make it interesting. But then at the same time, for people who are just starting songwriting, it can be easy to learn if they have this very rigid structure. But once you start to create more, you can find ways of breaking quote unquote rules and doing things more innovatively. I think that's really important.
Mhm. And a habit it tends to build is laziness with your writing, because if you open up and you see how what you're working with, and you're like, oh, this is easy, I'm just going to put this together, and there you go, copied it from the last one, and I'm going to change all the lyrics, add it to the melody, and I'm good. Same format, this is how much I have to do, here's my limit, I don't have to do any more than this. It creates a sense of, oh, I accomplished it, but all really you did is just filled in the blanks.
Mm-hmm.
And you're perfectly summed it up. If you want to be creative about it, you don't have to have a structure in your music that's consistent. You can be doing whatever you want. And I've written songs where there's nothing. It's just an ongoing track. It's just lyrics. They just go at it. And the genre I'm in allows me to do so, because it's very forgiving for a lot of talent, a lot of artists, because you can just create something that's different, and you can still fit it into the format of what you're working on. Some genres don't let you do that.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that's where it comes down to like, know the genre you're writing in, know listener expectations, and find ways of making them happy by sticking to expectations while also making your work stand out. Because I think this industry, especially, is so oversaturated with music that you have to be creative. You can't create cookie cutter music, try to copy number ones, or anything like that. And so, getting into the habit of being innovative and being mindful is really important. Another bad habit I can think of going along with the structure idea is getting into the habit of writing songs about the same concepts over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is something that I definitely did when I started because I was going through some things that were kind of about the same thing. And every time I went to write a song, it was always about that. And I struggled to write about other things. And so I think going back to being open to inspiration, maybe doing free writing and all of that, creating ways for yourself to find other avenues of messages and concepts to write about. Because whereas a songwriter and artist, you want your music to be connected to your brand, right? But at the same time, you don't want every single song to be about the same thing. So finding ways of writing about different messages that are all connected to you in some way is important.
Right. Drawn on the same inspiration all the time can only get you so far. Yeah, you're right. That's a terrible habit that occurs a lot actually, depending on what albums you listen to. That people create themes around the same topic, and there's only so many tracks you can have about being angry at somebody.
Right, exactly. Well, this was a great, great conversation all about good habits, bad habits, the importance of habits. So, before we go, Jacob, what are some final thoughts you would like to share about songwriting habits?
Utilize your positive habits as an inspiration. You know, something you can do to make yourself better. Use that to inspire you to do more and create that positive habit. I think as long as we draw on what we know and create from that, you can avoid bad habits. And you know what? Sometimes, and I'm going to be the evil behind it. Sometimes, in times of need, if you want to do something because you just, you want to regurgitate the same song you already did in a better way, go for it. But most of the time, you just create more good habits.
Perfect. Yeah, I think it's so important to remember that habits can be our best friends and our worst enemies. When you have good habits, they can make you be more productive, more creative, and all of those things, but the bad ones can definitely slow you down and make your songwriting process not the best it can be. So, definitely be mindful about the things that you're doing consistently and ask yourself, is this helping or hurting my songwriting? And you'll get the vibe. Like if you're getting a vibe that, oh, this is helping me, then keep doing that. But if you are doing something that isn't effective, then I think it's important to try to find ways of breaking out of that and finding ways of flipping it to making it a more positive habit.
Hmm. Perfect.
Well, this was a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for joining me to talk all about songwriting habits. Before we go, can you share with everyone where they can find you on social media and listen to the Sunday Night Army?
For sure. Everywhere on every single social app you have, for all the way from TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, it's the Sunday Night Army or at the Sunday Night Army, all the same everywhere. And regardless of what platform you listen to your music or podcasts on, I am there. Every single one, everywhere at the Sunday Night Army. Just search for it in your search bar, the Sunday Night Army, and I will pop up and give you all 207 episodes as of this weekend. And even if you avoid listening to my voice, you just go to Spotify and get the Spotify playlist, and you can find all the fabulous independent artists, such as Demi Michelle, and listen to their music without even listening to me talk about it. All nice and simple.
Jacob, thank you so much again for joining me for this great conversation about songwriting habits. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Jakub Winiarski. And of course, until next time, stay
Stay
right
right on
on
track.
track.